On how TradFi and DeFi stablecoins can kind of work together. Next up, we've got Antonina, who leads engineering at M0, and she'll be sharing more around the stablecoin infrastructure that M0 has built from a really cool engineering plus a product point of view. Antonina, all the best, and over to you.
Okay, hello. Waiting for my presentation. So, okay. So, hey everyone, my name is Antonina, and I'm leading engineering team at M0. M0 is a universal stablecoin platform. A few words about me. Before M0, I was also on the engineering team of Compound Labs. Compound used to be one of the biggest borrowing and lending protocol, which kickstarted DeFi summer back in 2020. And before Compound, I was also with Consensus, which legendary company that helped to make Ethereum happen. And also, I don't know if you guys know, but Kick started this conference, which was very small back in the early days. So I'm very happy today to present you my thoughts about secure and resilient stablecoin designs and what it makes to really make it through the bull cycle and the bear. So on that point, we can go back to stablecoin, to the classics, to the stablecoin trilemma. I don't know, everyone is in the phones, but curious to know how many of you heard about stablecoin trilemma? Anyone? No? Okay, well, then let's go through it. So stablecoin trilemma first time was introduced in 2021 in a heavy academic paper. And very quickly, it became a default classification framework of stablecoins which existed at that point in time. So if you're a stablecoin and you're decentralized, and you're decentralized and peg stable, it means you have to be over-collateralized because most likely your collateral is crypto, it has a high volatility, and it needs to be offset with over-collateralization buffer. So one example of such stablecoin was MakerDAO, DAI in its original version, and also LUSD and RAI. If you're peg stable and capital efficient, meaning for $1 of collateral, you can issue $1 of stablecoin, it means you need to be centralized. And this where incumbents like USDC and USDT live. And if you're capital efficient and you're decentralized, you're algorithmic, and most likely you're dead. So let's speak about death of algorithmic stablecoins. So first of all, most of them died very, very suddenly, very quickly, and via the death spiral. There was a lot of experimentation in algorithmic stablecoin space during DeFi summer. My Claude Opus 4.6 agent told me that there were about 260 stablecoins, and less than 5% of them made it to this day. So the path of most of these stablecoins was similar. It was a death spiral. So what happens, there is an external shock in the market, and the size of external event doesn't matter. It can be something small, which leads to the confidence loss. There is a selling pressure on stablecoin. The price dips below $1 protocol, which is very commonly backed by the protocol of stablecoin, which is very commonly backed by so-called homogeneous collateral, starts to mint backing token to absorb the selling pressure. Backing token price slides down because arbitrageurs trying to sell it as fast as possible. The price of backing token going even faster than the price of stablecoin itself, meaning the protocol starts to mint more and more of this backing token, eventually hyperinflates. The backing token price go to zero, stablecoin price go to zero, the end of spiral. So this is the famous Terra Luna crash. Also 1 year before that, there was an Iron Titan crash, which was the first crypto bank run. So what is learnings from stablecoins? The first learnings, our space stopped doing stablecoins because there is no way you can build resilient stablecoin backed on the collateral which is issued by protocol itself. It's like if you don't have collateral, you have to be algorithmically smart. It's like if you're collaterally poor, you have to be logic smart. but it works as long as there is a heavy bull cycle, and it usually ends very fast. So what happens next in the space? So algorithmic stablecoins ceased to exist, and overall the market changed. First of all, the macro environment changed, where we ended zero interest rates era and switched to the era of high Fed funds rate. So what it meant that all of a sudden there was an off-chain collateral which was giving very competitive yield, and this off-chain collateral started to come on-chain. So it's tokenized funds, tokenized treasury bills. Additionally, new models start to come. So for example, ETHDenver, delta neutral stablecoin, was invented in 2023. And all of these stablecoins didn't really work well for stablecoin trilemma. So instead of stablecoin trilemma, we switched back to understanding that resilient stablecoin is possible. So what needs to happen for that? First of all, there should be a collateral which is stable, solid, and 100% of stablecoin should be in it. This allows for stablecoin to be capital efficient and keep the peg stability. At this point, peg stability becoming just a function of liquidity. So if there is enough liquidity in the market and the market volatility is low, that's when stablecoins keep the peg. The moment markets start to crash, you obviously have to have more liquidity on chain to offset all the market volatility. So let's look at some of the crashes. Let's look at some of the lessons of the last year, 2025. So what happened? So first of all, the year was very good, but then towards the end, we start to have a few of sudden events. On Friday, there was a beautiful big announcement about tariffs coming, and all of the sudden, crypto market went in disarray, a lot of liquidations, 19 billion liquidations cascade. ETHDenver depegged to 65 cents on Binance, kept its price back on other venues. Luckily, nothing major happened. Not a single big protocol stablecoin failed. But then 1 month later, we started to see the aftermath of this October crash. So first of all, the Stream Finance apparently lent its collateral to the fund manager, which went broke during October crash. The second thing, there was also the stablecoin project, Elixir, which lent now its collateral to the Stream Finance. So there was a cascade of crashes. Accidentally, at the same time, there was a balancer V2 exploit, there was a rounding issue in the protocol, and all of a sudden, one more stable protocol ceased to exist. So that led to unfortunate demise of free stablecoins, and it also affected a lot of major protocols and vaults. What are the learnings from this? First of all, that DeFi composability works as long as your weakest link in this DeFi composability. So if you're giving collateral, if you're lending out collateral of your stablecoin, first of all, the question, why are you doing that? And the second question, to whom actually are you lending this collateral? One thing I want to bring up that we noticed that during October crash, there was also ETHDenver depeg on Binance. And ETHDenver is an interesting model which was introduced in 2023, and it's a delta neutral stablecoin, meaning that the protocol holds long its crypto collateral, but offsets this position with a short perpetual positions to offset the price volatility. Price movements are canceled out, and the yield comes from the funding rate. And it works very well when we're in the bull cycle, because in the bull cycle, the funding rate is positive. And then the protocol can send this funding rate back to stakers or to the users of protocol when it's not really working well during the bearish cycles. And looking at the ETHDenver crash events, every time there is some market uncertainty, we see that something happens to ETHDenver. So for example, there was a macro uncertainty with Japan carry trade. If ETHDenver had a stress event, there was a Bitcoin halving event. ETHDenver had a stress event. Crypto liquidations of October 2025. again, Ethena has a stressful performance. And overall, obviously now we're not in heavy bull market, so the funding rates are also going down. And it's only a question how long protocol which offsets its volatility with hedging position can pay negative funding rates. Well, on that note, it's obviously very, very complex. It's financial engineering. It's not the actual engineering, but I have a good news. Actual engineering is relatively simple. The stablecoin is probably one of the most simple primitives we can use, especially if you're taking out algorithmic stablecoins and we stop playing with logic versus collateral. I'm trying to show on the right side of the slide, actually this is Ethena. Ethena is 36-line long contract, and the most interesting part of this contract is actually the phrase on the top, which says dust on crust. I mean, it's a little bit of speculation because this contract also using a lot of libraries, but at the end of the day, it's very, very simple piece of code. And the stablecoin contracts itself, it's basically transfer approve functions, some permits and roles. Well, you can say, what about yield? What about yield-bearing stablecoins? First of all, yield-bearing stablecoins are not as popular anymore after Genius Act, but that's the one aspect in the engineering of stablecoin which is interesting and is left for us to work on. In my presentation, I'm comparing M0, which is a protocol I and our team built out, with Tempo, which recently released their own framework for stablecoins, and how we calculate the yield in M0 versus Tempo. So in M0, we use an index in principle and continuous compounding, and a Tempo is using distribution of rewards. Just a few words about M0. I have 40 seconds left. I'm not very frequent speaker, so M0 itself is it's a universal stablecoin platform, and it connects issuers with algorithmic builders. Recently we launched, 2025 was a very heavy year for us. We launched a lot of stablecoins. One of the most popular is MetaMask USD. And how it works, so we built a protocol where issuer can come, and if they comply with the set of rules, they can issue the stablecoin on top of that. Stablecoin itself uses extension frameworks built by our team, which allow to compose different features which go into this stablecoin. And the end builder using the stablecoin, and in addition, they allow to have optional features like liquidity support, and if issuer wants, also interoperability between the stablecoins. So thank you so much for attention, and if you have questions about M0, please let me know.